it's going to go. We are going to run tests. These tests are like we're going to have a null and alternative hypothesis. Okay, and this is essentially what your project is going to be. This is essentially what your graded assignment is going to be. So your null hypothesis is always going to look kind of similar. Okay, so this is going back to that home and away stuff. All right, so if I'm writing my null hypothesis for this one, I'm going to say there is not an association between location and outcome for football games. Now, if I have enough evidence and I reject this, what do you think I'm going to be able to conclude? There is an association. And I'll tell you what. As long as you write one of these really, really well, like in context, I'm not going to care about the other one, okay? But I want one of them written like in the what is actually going on here. Everybody good? Bless you. All right. And yesterday we calculated the chi-squared for the statistic to be 0.11. Hey guys, what's our degrees of freedom for this particular table? We would do 2 rows minus 1 times 2 columns minus 1. 1. All right. So now in our chi-squared CDF, we have 1 degree of freedom. We have a chi-squared statistic of 0.11. We're going to shade to the right. So we skew right, shade right. And what's our p-value? 0.74?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
cool.
so how do you decide where to put that little like line on the graph? You just kind of put it in like right there,
Like 0.11 is like super tiny.
Yeah.
So I put it pretty far to the left. Normally I would imagine you're gonna put it like.
What should our
Towards the
question
middle.
be before class? We still have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Normally I'd put it like right here.
Yep.
Hey guys, what does this p-value suggest? Since our sample is that, would you guys say that's unlikely or likely? Unlikely. We cannot. Oh, wait, it is not unlikely. Guys, 75% chance of happening is not unlikely.
I thought you said the bigger it was, the more unlikely it was, or something like that.
Is reasonably likely. We cannot rule out. HO. And therefore, we cannot conclude an association. And in this case, I'm going to say we cannot conclude a home field advantage. What if that had been, what if that p-value ended up being like, I don't know, 0.03? Then we would say
Then it is unlikely.
our sample is unlikely, therefore we can reject the null hypothesis. Therefore, we can conclude that there was an association between, but there wasn't, because there's not really a home field advantage for us, is there? At least not according to this data. Maybe that's changed.
I don't think so. Not at least one of the last 2 years.
You guys want another example before the graded assignment?
Yeah. I will turn it out.
Okay, what's my null hypothesis? There's not an association between, how about origin and size of car? And my alternative would be that there is an association. See, that's easy.
Easy.
Peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay,
Is it 1? 4.
all right, so how many rows do we have?
3. 2.
2 rows,
Where?
because you don't count the totals.
Oh,
Yeah.
Times, how many columns do we have?
2. 3.
3 minus 1. So my degrees of freedom is equal to 2, okay? So then we draw the picture. You guys, we didn't get to calculating this chi-squared, but it was 2.506. You're going to label that 2 degrees of freedom. And then tell me what the p-value is.
Miss Marcy,
Yep.
how do you get to the
I got point two
like how do
nine.
you get to it on the calculator again?
Second verse. Any of the distributions, anything that says CDF, you go into that distribution menu.
0.29.
When I do that though, I don't have like an option. Like it just stops at string.
Stops at what?
String.
You have to hit second bars. My guess is you were in the vars menu instead of the distribution menu. Okay? And what are we going to make, what's this conclusion going to say? Since our sample is
Unlikely.
it unlikely?
Yes.
What's our definition of unlikely usually? We haven't really talked about it in this packet yet. But it's in the old packets, like that alpha level. You guys remember?
Oh, like less than
5%. 5%. So our sample is reasonably likely because it's more likely than 5%. Like there's like a 1 in 3 shot that we could have gotten this weirdest sample. That's not crazy. So since our sample is reasonably likely, we cannot rule out the null.
How is like in the last one you said like 0.74 was reasonably unlikely, but like
Reasonably likely.
Oh, okay. Wait, what? So then this is reasonably unlikely.
No, this is also reasonably likely.
Why did I say it has to be?
Are
So how is
unlikely. To decide is it unlikely in our world right now, it means less than 0.05.
Oh, I thought you said 0.5. Can I tell you the joke I noticed last night?
Sure.
What generation is Forrest Gump?
I don't know what.
Gen A.